Welcome back. You're still live. You're on your Feel Good Breakfast Show. It's time to get into relationship talk. Now, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has shaken up the rhythm of our daily lives and also affected each and every one of us, whether we've been personally impacted on an emotional, psychological, financial, or even physical level. This has also inevitably had an impact on our close relationships with people and how we navigate them.
That's right. And it is Monday, and that means we're talking all things relationships. And today we're asking this question: did the pandemic make or break your relationship? Well, clinical psychologist Asha Dullabh, she is here today to help us discuss this, and we would love to hear from you. So please take your questions and any of the comments that you have, and you can redirect that via our Expresso Facebook page. Asha, what an interesting topic.
Absolutely, it is an interesting one. The pandemic has really just given us the time to look at our relationships and take perspective, looking at the pros and the cons, the strengths and the weaknesses of our relationships. So it has been a time of an awakening experience.
I think there must have also been something to a lot of couples, especially ones that traveled a lot, and now all of a sudden they were forced to spend time together, and they actually realized they don't have that much in common.
Yes. So, spending time together in a relationship can bring out a lot of stress and anxiety. And what's actually needed is solitude. And, just people spending time with themselves is very necessary. And that was quite difficult for many people. And spending too much time together was quite shuddering for many couples. And a lot of couples actually felt quite bored in their relationships. It was quite stagnant, the energy, there was no movement. And there was a range of stress and anxiety. It was amplified at such a level. So relationships did take strain. But lovely, research is showing that relationships have really done well. And at the same time, some had to decide that they had to end it. But either way, I think that we have shifted altogether.
I think if you've actually, as a relationship or as a couple, got through this past 2 years together, you can take on anything. Because it was the emotional, the physical, the financial, everything on that level that caused those stress and anxiety. But now let's take on grief as well. A lot of people lost so much during this time, and that can obviously have an impact on relationships as well. How are you finding couples are dealing with, already the day-to-day struggles that they have between one another, but now also adding grief on top of that?
Yes. That is the biggest thing, is the loss of loved ones. Of course, we are grieving so much of our lives, but then we've lost a lot of close family members. And when it comes to grief, we must realize that we grieve very uniquely. And sometimes couples don't understand that their partner's grieving in a way that's different from the way they grieve. There's an emotional roller coaster that happens with so much emotions, apart from the grief cycle that every person has to go through. When we're looking at grief, it's something that is so personal, and sometimes there can be a lot of misunderstandings, and with that comes all the other stresses, unemployment, having to deal with children, and it can really just amplify and raise up such heightened emotions. So it's very important in this time to pause and honor one's grief. Be yourself, honor the authenticity, and it's a shared reality. This is what the pandemic has brought about, a shared reality that both partners are going through the same stresses and anxieties.
Yeah.
Do it's so sorry, I'm going to break your word, but it's so often we speak about our love language, but we never speak about our grief language, because that's also a whole other thing.
Yes.
How someone deals with something, how they, enclosed. Do I want to have my partner there? Do I want to be in a sense of solitude? Like, all of those things need to be discussed in a relationship, and I think that is exactly what the pandemic forced everyone. You had to deal with it. I'm with my partner now. Let's speak. Let's open up the communication of how I'm going to deal with this.
Absolutely, Jamie. Grief also has its own language, but it also links to our attachment styles. If we think about us, if we are in a secure relationship, we feel safe emotionally with closeness and with being apart. There's a balance between shared intimacy and time apart, where someone that is quite anxious, they actually feel safe when there's more closeness. And when other parties, when they just want to avoid, they don't want the closeness, they feel safe when there's more time, more solitude. So there's so many aspects to how we deal with grief, and it all links into so many layers, like our attachment styles. If we are securely attached, we understand each other more and we find that balance. So grief language is very important. Some of us grieve by doing things, some of us grieve by just being alone and having that solitude. But empathy is very important. Cognitive empathy and emotional empathy, which is slightly different. Cognitive is really, I understand how you feel, but emotional empathy is really putting yourself in those shoes of another human being and saying, I really can feel what you are feeling, and that is what is needed.
It's definitely what is needed. Well, Asha, we have to pick your brain on a whole lot more. I love what you were explaining about the grief and, of course, the year of the lockdown. In fact, 2020 and 2021 was also a year of a lot of loss, and we'll take a look shortly when Asha is back with us, the impact that loss had on relationships. Well, we are asking you the question, did lockdown make or break your relationship? If you'd love to join in on the conversation and ask your questions or leave your comments, you can do so on the Expresso Facebook page.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
You're back. This is your Feel Good Breakfast Show, and we're talking relationships because that's what we do every single Monday. And today we're asking the question, did the pandemic make or break your relationship? Now we are back with our clinical psychologist, Asha Dullabh, who is here to unpack this topic for us. And if you would love to weigh in with a question or a comment, please do so on the Expresso Facebook page. And we're also being joined by husband and wife, Carl and Valene Weber, who are going to share with us that their relationship has been going through during this pandemic and the hardship that has taken place for their family. And it's great to have you both here joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to say bring out the tissues already because I know it was a very difficult few years for the two of you. Valene, I followed your journey on social media, just seeing what you went through. 2020 was a difficult year for you, more specifically June of that year. For those who don't know, share your story with us.
So June 2020, sure, a month I trying to forget, but you can't. I lost both my mom and my dad to COVID-19, 4 days apart. And I play back the calls that I received on the mornings of my parents' death. My mommy more the evening. And that for me is hard. It's difficult because you realize they're no longer there. And I think almost 2 years down the line, they always say the first are the worst, but I don't believe that because that pain and that void is always going to be there. They weren't just anybody, they were my parents. And the fact that we couldn't be at their funerals because we were in isolation with COVID, and it plays on the emotional and physical mindset. So yeah, it's been a rough 2 years. Grieving is not easy. You need to take time. You need to look back at the good memories, and that's what I hold on to, the good memories of my parents.
Well, you are so strong. Thank you for sharing that with us. And Carl, I know these last 2 years, given what's happened with the family, what's happened with the industry, you being a comedian, people always look to you and just expect life to be okay because you make everyone else laugh. But who's making you laugh, and how are you coping with the loss that's going on in the background, but people still expect you to make them laugh?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I'm such a good comedian that I do make myself laugh, but yeah, it's a reality. It's a reality. Like you feel obligated to make people laugh, and also coming out of lockdown and out of this pandemic, you need to be on a good footing. But when the cameras goes off and the lights goes off, and then you're just a normal person at the end of the day. Yeah. And she makes me laugh a lot, like unintentionally.
I try.
And given everything that has happened, what kind of an impact did this have on your relationship, on your marriage?
Well, I think obviously on the emotional side, it has a mental strain on you because you constantly feel it's your duty, it's an obligation, and a need. You want to be there for your partner, but you're going through the most as well. So you both need to be there for each other, and then also the financial loss takes a definite strain. If someone says, you know what, all we need is love, no. It's just one aspect of a relationship. Financial strain is a reality, and it's really
It's real. And you know, many times we hear people suffering of depression and anxiety and being stressed out. And you don't realize that it could hit your home one day. And not for myself, but I looked at Carl, where depression is concerned. Depression was real, and Carl was open and out on social media, and he spoke about it. And I take my hat off for that, because people don't do that. Because you just go into this dark space, and when it comes to Carl, he goes into his office, and he doesn't want to be bothered. So communication plays a big role for us, and obviously supporting each other at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I look at you guys now, this could have either make you or completely break you, but you guys came out stronger, and now you're sharing your story. Asha, I want to bring you in for this as well. Why is it so important that, you know, people that's in a relationship rely on each other during these difficult times to say, you know what, we are going to, because this is for better or for worse. I mean, come on.
Yes. Yeah, this is what we call resilience within a team. You know, it's about the quality that they have in the relationship. We're talking about superb qualities that they have, where they have spoken about patience with each other, tolerance for each other, for where they are at. I hear that they've honored each other in their relationship, allowing each other the space to really just explore and express where they both were at. The support is key here. They've really needed to support each other. And of course, you know, there's a lot of pressures and expectations, and to understand those expectations is relevant. But I honor this couple for being together. It's the team that makes it work. And this is a fabulous team of support and encouragement and love.
Well, Carl, Valene, it's so great having you here. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you
And
for having us.
Asha, you know, this is a very, I think a lot of people are taking a lot of notes from what you've been saying and sharing as we ask the question, did the pandemic make or break your relationship? If you would love to add to that conversation, whether it's your comment or your question, please do so on the Expresso Facebook page.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
You're live, it's Monday, so we're talking all things relationships this morning. And today we're asking you, did the pandemic make or break your relationship? Well, we're back with both online clinical psychologist Asha Dullabh to unpack this topic, so do weigh in with your questions and any of your comments on our Facebook page. But we're also being joined via video call by husband and wife Graham and Shamel Stanfleet, who are going to share with us what their relationship has been through during this pandemic. Good morning, guys. How are you doing this morning?
Hi, morning guys.
We good, and you?
We're good.
It's great to have you here. And Sharmel, I'm actually going to ask you the first question because your story has a lot of similarities to our previous guests, Valene and Carl. Now, you've also experienced some close losses during this pandemic. Do you mind sharing some of us, with us?
Well, so this pandemic has been a very, very difficult period in my life. I lost my granny, I lost my mother before that, and we actually lost my mother-in-law as well.
Sure.
But it's been difficult, but having my husband helping me and being there for me and being my comfort and my shoulder to cry on has strengthened me, and it's made me get through this period in my life where I felt nothing's going to go right anymore. I lost everything. He made me realize that I've got something else to live for. And without him, I don't know what I would have done. If he wasn't in my life, I don't know where I would have been right now.
Wow, I can't even imagine what the both of you had to go through to be able to be at this point in your relationship. Graham, I'll ask you as well, how do you think, the stress and of all of this, the pandemic, the loss that you guys had, has had an impact on your relationship as well as your marriage?
Well, it was difficult. When as Shamel said, we have each other. I also lost my mother in the pandemic, and everyone was stressing because of work related. You don't work the normal hours that you do. So, yeah, they had a lot of stress on us. But for us to have each other's backs and our children, that made it worthwhile. And we realized that in everything in life, you have to depend on God and put Him first, and He will get you through the most difficult and hard times. So yeah, just to have her in my corner, it made it all worthwhile for me.
Thank you, Graham. Well, Graham, Sharmel, we actually have Asha Dullabh, a clinical psychologist here in studio with us. And Asha, I'm actually going to ask you this question. Getting in quality time with our loved ones is so important now more than ever. But especially when a couple experiences loss, how important is it to really have quality time as a couple?
It is absolutely important. It's like continuing to water the grass in the relationship, you know. It's quality on all levels. Quality time extends to, it's a love language, so it's quality conversations, quality rituals that maintain the relationship, that maintain the pillar of support. What I love about this couple is that they also just hang on to their faith, and that's what's needed. I think what's so important is to remember that nothing lasts forever, nothing is permanent, and even our most difficult times pass. So quality in gratitude, practicing gratitude is very important. And you know, what we often hear in these circumstances is that there's that support from each other, that I can rely, I can depend on my partner. And that is beautiful. That is what we are all needing. And it comes with a deep level of understanding of each other's circumstances.
Sharmel and Graham, sorry, before I say goodbye to you guys, what would you say are, you know, the things that have gotten you through these tough times that you can share as advice to other couples who may be struggling with something that they are going through right now?
Jamie, communication is the most important part of it all. Open relationship, hide nothing, share everything. If you have a problem, speak to your partner. He's going to be able, or she's going to be able to help you get through that difficult period or whatever it is that you're going through. Just keep it open.
Thank you for that, Sharmel. And perhaps for you, Graham?
Yeah, I would say the same. And then, as I said before, put God first and spend more family time together. That's the most important for me. Okay. And you'll get through the most difficult times.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Asha, as always, thank you so much for coming through and just teaching us that it's, you know, it's okay to not be okay, but it's also okay to have a person that you can rely on, depend on, especially if it's your partner, and they must also seek help. If people want to reach out to you again, how can they get hold of you?
And they can reach me on email or both on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and I'm there to help.
There we go. Well, Asha Dullabh joining us this morning as we spoke all things relationships around, did the pandemic make or break your relationship? So far, the couples we've been talking to, it definitely made their relationship a lot stronger. And of course, if you still want to weigh in on that conversation, you're welcome to do so on Expresso's Facebook page.